first case. I started doing some research, and I started doing some checking around, and I started finding all these cases all over the place. Most of the victims of electric shock drowning, thus the phrase, enter that field that you saw there, the voltage gradients, to the point where they're being paralyzed, okay? Because can you imagine for a moment, let's think about this real quick, and how are we doing? Way better. I got a lot of technical stuff. That'll be fun for you, I think, to look at and talk about. So when I go like this, what's happening? Right? That's exactly right. I'm sending very low electrical signals from my brain, shocking, if you will, the muscles, causing my finger to very carefully do this, very precisely, right? And that's amazing. Extremely low voltage. Now imagine for a moment 120 VAC running through all of those same muscles and tendons and all of that kind of stuff. So what happens when you get electrocuted? Yes, you clench up, right? And so the vast majority of victims, we thought anyway, until Lucas, of this, just enter that field of electricity and in fact, end up having what we call skeletal muscular paralysis. They can't swim without a life jacket, they're going to drown. And we got lots of cases like that. But Lucas was electrocuted, and his heart was stopped in the water, and it was the first documented case of this. I am convinced that he wasn't the first one that was electrocuted, but most of them have been diagnosed as very strange drownings. You know, a lot of times, you know, I get to a scene and law enforcement will come to me and say, well, you know, we heard that this guy's a drunk, or stuff like that. I'm kind of going, what the heck does that have to do with anything here? Right? That has absolutely nothing to do with it. But anyway. Okay, where can this happen? Do you all need a break? Okay, good. Because we got a cadence going here. Okay, where else can this happen? Well, a marina. Okay, can that? I mean, how much energy, how much power is in a marina? How many boats? And do you know enough to know if your electrical system is up to standard? If it's, you know, how do you know this? You know, and you know, if there's AC in the water, okay. If there's AC in the water, usually it's got to be my neighbor. You know, or maybe it's the marina. Yep. You know, it's always that. So anyway, lots of possibility. How about rivers? Irrigation pumps is huge. You know, I heard a story just before we started here tonight, and there's a lot of cases with irrigation pumps and owners and their dogs, you know, going down to a river, the dog jumps in, the dog's in trouble, owner jumps in to save the dog, we find both of them. Okay. There was a case at the in Idaho. She was the assistant volleyball coach, and she went missing, and husband calls the sheriff's department and says, you know, my wife left, and she hasn't, the dog's not here, and she's not here, her vehicle's here, and they found the dog, his wife, and 2 other victims that tried to save her on a canal. And there was an irrigation pump there. So these irrigation pumps, you know, are very, very dangerous things if they're not properly checked and everything. And oftentimes they're not, unfortunately. Lakes, same thing. Ponds often have water features. And these water features, these pumps are AC pumps. And they're required to have what we call ground fault protection. You would know these as GFCIs, right? They're in all your houses. Any place where there's water and electricity, we are required, I'm just looking around to see if I can spot them here real quick. We're required to have a GFCI. And what a GFCI does is essentially it's looking for an imbalance between the hot and the neutral. And when I say imbalance, that's some of the power that's going in not coming back out the intended pathway. That creates a magnetic field, and that magnetic field causes the GFCI to trip, okay, to save your life if you touch the wrong thing, okay? So, there was not this particular pond, but we had a case down in Florida where an 8-year-old girl went to a birthday party at a putt-putt golf course, and her mistake was she knocked a ball into the pond and then reached into the pond to retrieve her ball, where as soon as she put her hands in the water, she was being electrocuted, falls face forward in the water. Everybody trying to grab her is getting shocked, trying to pull her out. And the guy that was in charge said that he had pulled the ground fault protection device, GFCI, out because it kept faults tripping. Okay? It kept faults tripping is what he said. Now it wasn't faults tripping. These devices, as they get older and stuff, they don't just suddenly start tripping or start faulting and stop. They're just going to intermittently do this stuff, and that was what was going on. So I want you to think about any place where we have electricity and water, this is a possibility. Like shock drowning defined is basically low level. They call this low level. 120 volts, 240 is considered low level AC. So basically there is electric shock drowning is a result of passage of typically low level AC current through the body with sufficient force to cause skeletal muscular paralysis. Therefore, if they're swimming, they're not going to be able to swim and therefore drown. Okay? Higher levels of AC, of course, can result in electrocution. Michael Cunningham, real quick. Stonewall Jackson Lake, West Virginia, was there with his best friend, and she had just turned 16. Mom and Dad rent a houseboat. Here's the houseboat. Notice the police tape here. When you rent a houseboat like this, they typically take you on an orientation cruise, which they did. They came back in, parked the boat. As the guy at the marina there plugged the boat back in, he felt the cord getting hot. So he says to the kids and to the dad, "Dad, you go ahead, get your other boat that's in the parking lot on the trailer and launch that. Kids, you go ahead and swim off the back of this boat. It's not allowed in the marina, but you're not in the marina. You're renting this boat for us. You can swim off the back while I fix this electrical problem." Okay? And so basically, Michael is right here in the water. Kaylee is out here. Kaylee's little sister, and I don't recall her name, had just gone up this ladder. She's soaking wet, and he finishes his job and switches on the breaker. And Michael lets out. Witnesses said to me that it was like, and it wasn't human, the scream that came. It was unhuman. You know, it was just such a horrific scream. Kaylee is right here in the water, and she doesn't know anything that's happening until she reaches over and touches his shoulder. And then she's rendered unconscious and was hospitalized. Fortunately, she had a life jacket on. We didn't get Michael. Michael wasn't retrieved until the next day. He was in 30 feet of water. Sister is standing up here not knowing what in the world is going on. Why was she okay? She was standing on 120 volts, but the whole bloody boat was energized to 120 volts. And here's why. If you can look closely here, this is the shore power cord that had just been fixed. Okay, can you see this green color here? This is green right here. That stands for your AC safety ground. And what did he wire there?
A hot black AC.
Yep, he just put the line voltage right on the ground. When he plugged that in, energized the entire hall. And this is the resistance between, this is for Andy here, resistance between the AC safety ground and the hot. And we had perfect resistance. In other words, perfect continuity, not resistance. There was no resistance in here at all. Okay? Samantha Chipley, she'd been at the lake just home on leave from the Air Force. And she was swimming with 3 of her friends. They'd gotten out of the water, just jumped back in the water. This time, though, when they hit the water, they started screaming. There was a bystander on the beach that saw the 2 girls in trouble. He jumped in and started swimming towards them. He got hit by the same electricity, but was able to feel it before he got so far that he couldn't get away. And Samantha was closest, They tried to grab her. Every time they touched her, though, they were getting shocked. And she did push her friend far enough away that they were able to get her out. I'd be in real trouble because I don't have any hair, but they pulled her out by her hair because they weren't getting shocked through her hair. But they were every time they touched her anywhere else. Saved her life. The thing that really makes me sad is that she struggled for 7 minutes. Zachary Craze was swimming in a marina again, unfortunately, and the marina had decided rather than running an appropriate safety ground in the conduit, the steel conduit that was on the side of the marina there, well, we've got steel, it's conductive, we'll just use that as a safety ground. Ken Lutrick was with 3 buddies. They were in a marina swimming. Everything was honky-dory. A boat came by and started rocking all the other boats, and all of a sudden, what was okay wasn't okay. And, well, shore power cord has burnt out. This happens a lot, right? So the owner of the boat just takes and drills a hole in the aluminum siding of this houseboat, shoves the conductors in there. And by the way, cut the AC safety ground because he had heard that the AC safety ground causes corrosion. And he did not want to lose a propeller because that's expensive. Well, okay, what do you think happened here? Can you see it? So it was fine until the boat came through and rocked it a little bit, and it acted just like a switch. Okay, and every time it rocked just a little bit, it would energize the hull, and then it would go off, and then it would go on, and then it would go off. And who knows how long this had been doing this until Ken was there. Jesse Eisen was in a designated swimming area in a marina when a boat came in, plugged in. He was there with 12 other kids, all swimming, having a great time. The boat comes in, plugs in, switches on the breaker, and everybody's screaming. Okay? His mother asked me if, she goes, somebody suggested that Jesse saved the lives of the other kids. And I said, yes, I believe that to be correct. Because he took the brunt, and he took the most of the current there, and it divides up, wherever the current's going, he took the most of it. So the rest of the kids did survive, and he didn't. So she took some comfort in that. Anyway, I don't need to go on forever and ever on these cases, but we could go on a long time. This was a case where I got a call from a detective down in, where was it? Oh, Lake Travis. And he said that there was 2 girls that jumped off, sisters, 8 and 16. They jumped off the boat and started screaming. And popped up out of the water, eyes wide open, mouth wide open, very stiff, unable to talk, and they both went limp. And he goes, that's when I think the breaker tripped. And I said, breaker never tripped. And he goes, oh, I'm quite sure. And I said, okay, check with, did you get there first? No, fire department. I said, check their records. And he called me back and said, oh, you're right. The breaker never tripped because they had to turn it off before they could get in the water at all. So, yeah, why would the breaker not trip? Why is it that when you leak electricity, the breaker doesn't trip?
Not enough current.
Not enough current. Not enough current. Even in salt water, which is significantly more conductive than fresh water, there's not enough current to cause that breaker to trip. All right? If it was, there would be breakers tripping all the time, unfortunately. So, yeah. Check this out. I'm going to be a little sarcastic here. The conductors coming down here are properly secured and in appropriate conduit. Okay? You can see this. The conductors are in very good shape. You can see this. And his junction box is fantastic. Again, this is sarcasm. So this is his junction box. Here's the Romex conductors, and he brings it through. This is the steel. And if I back up here real quick, just so you can see this structure here, you can see this wire coming up here. Okay, this is all steel and conductive. And so basically it chafed through and made contact to this and energized this entire everything in here. And this is the sheriff patrol boat here. So this whole structure was energized and they jumped off next door. Okay. So if you can believe this, all that this homeowner did is take the hot wire and run it through the hole in the 15 amp plug. If you look at a 15 amp plug, there's two holes. There's one on the neutral and one on the hot, and that was his junction box. Unbelievable. And of course, this cord, look how great shape that cord is right there. Okay, oh, one more. This was really sad. Mom and dad lost 2 children at one time on, I'm trying to remember this lake. Lake of the Ozarks, thanks, Cheryl. Lake of the Ozarks, and they were on the dock down there, and then jumping in and swimming and stuff like that. A fault occurred, and anyway, I just had this picture in my mind of mom giving CPR to one,